Hopefully all of you love playing saxophone, and probably many of you love improvising as well. And also many of you will find yourself in situations where you need to improvise using the pentatonic scale, right? Well, I'm pro saxophonist Jamie Anderson. You're watching Get Your Sax Together. On this week's free saxophone lesson, I'm going to show you that you're either not getting the full picture about pentatonics, or you've been slightly misled about how they work when you're improvising. Let's delve into it and sort all this stuff out. The first problem with teaching people how to improvise using pentatonic scales is that the way the scale is written out is not really indicative of how it's used in the situation. Normally your scale is written out with the root at the bottom, the scale goes up, and it goes up for 1 octave, but that's really not how it works in reality. So instead, I like to write out pentatonic scales more like this. So what you can see below in that diagram is the pentatonic scale for tenor sax. It's going to be the A major pentatonic or the F sharp minor pentatonic. We're going to come to that in a moment. Don't worry about that for a second. But you can see from the way it's written out down there that instead of writing out the scale from the root and just going up 1 octave, I've written it in a couple of different ways. First of all, the scale covers the entire range of the saxophone. Because guess what? That's how you're going to be improvising. You're going to be using the whole range of the horn. The second thing I've done is that I've highlighted the roots of each of the pentatonics. So if you look at the first pentatonic there at the top, it's A major pentatonic, and you can see that the roots are green. Now, what is that weird seesaw which is above some of the notes in the scales? Let's look at that next. The seesaw that you can see down there relates to the second issue with how people teach pentatonics. And that is, when you write out the pentatonic, it just looks like all the notes are equal. But in reality, especially when you're learning to improvise using the pentatonic scale, not all notes are created equal, okay? It is not like the American Constitution when it comes to pentatonic scales. The root of the key that you're playing in is much more important than the other notes. Now, what about these little seesaw things? Well, this is how it works. You're going to focus on the root because it's the most important note, and then you're going to pivot down to the note below and back to the root, or pivot up to the note and then back to the root, or maybe you pivot up 2 notes and come back to the root, or you pivot down 2 notes and come back to the root. And the root has that sort of center of gravity that pulls in your improvisation. It's going to sound much more convincing. So let's do a little before and after here. First of all, this is how you might be improvising using the pentatonic scale at the moment. If you're just creating all notes are equal, you end up just kind of noodling randomly all over the place, and it might sound a little bit like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, there's nothing dramatically wrong with that because all the notes fit, because we know that the song that you're playing fits all those notes. However, it doesn't really have much direction, and it just doesn't have that kind of earthiness, that gravity, which separates your improvising from that of somebody who sounds a little bit more pro. So instead, let's do this. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on the root. Now, to begin with, in the major version of this pentatonic scale, the root is A, okay? The root is A. And we're going to go up a note, down, back to the root. Down a note, back to the root. And then start exploring going a couple of notes up, back to the root. A couple of notes down and back to the root. And that is going to sound more like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's expand that out a little bit. We're going to use 2 notes above the root and 2 notes below the root. So for me on tenor, I'm going to be playing A as the main root, and then I've got the B and the C sharp above it, and I've got the F sharp and the E below it. But we keep that pincer movement going to draw yourself back to that center of gravity with the root. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, obviously at the moment, this sounds a little bit contrived. It doesn't sound that great and we're spending a lot of time on the root. But remember, we're learning to improvise. This is just an exercise at this point, okay? Now what we can do is you can take your center of gravity, your home note, and you can also use the one up the octave. So once you start going up that scale from the C sharp, you can go to the E, but then pivot up to the top root as well. So we can start mixing up the roots and mixing up which one we pivot down to. So that would sound a little bit like this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, now keep watching. So I've got a couple of really cool bonus tips coming up later, which is going to tie this whole thing together and make your pentatonic solos sound that much better. But in the meantime, you might have noticed that below the first scale is a second scale. And guess what? It's all exactly the same notes. But what's the difference? The only difference is the center of gravity, the home note, which is F sharp instead of A. So that's the next thing we're going to explore. But just before we get there, let me tell you that all the stuff that you're watching is in my Improvisation Mastery course. I'll stick a link in the description for that program, which is a 0 to hero guide to help you improvise and sound great doing a melodic awesome solo over any song. Also, while we're talking about all the goodies available for you, as always, there'll be a fantastic bonus video inside my Inner Circle membership. The Inner Circle membership is an online membership with loads of cool teaching content and a fantastic community, which is really going to help you become the best saxophonist you can possibly be. It's going to give you that motivation, that direction, and most of all, it's going to give you that really cool community and day in, day out access to me, which you will not find in something like the comments of this YouTube video. So you got to jump in there and join the Inner Circle. It's a fantastic place to be. So hopefully I'll see you in there. Let's look at this major versus minor thing now. Okay, like I mentioned, the only difference between these two scales is the center of gravity, the home note, the root note. So in A major, the root note is A. In F sharp minor, obviously the home root is F sharp. That's where you're going to pull to. That's where you're going to pivot around, even though it's exactly the same notes as the A major. But it's going to feel different because the note that you're really applying more pressure to is going to be different. And that's the thing that nobody teaches you about the pentatonic scales. So let's do exactly the same thing, but this time we're going to be doing it in F sharp minor, and we're going to be, our home note will be F sharp.
1, 2, 3. Here we go.
So you can see there that I was focusing on the home note of the key, which is that F sharp, and I was pivoting down, pivoting up, and also towards the end of it, I changed octave, so you could change that center of gravity. Now, what about those bonus tips though, which are going to take this to the next level? Let's check that out next. So it's all very well knowing the theory, but you're still not going to sound that great unless you apply a couple of extra things to really bring these pentatonics to life. The first is your rhythm. If you're not playing with great groove, and you're not playing with great articulation, and you're not playing with great phrasing, your solos are just never going to sound that convincing at all right? It's all about that phrasing. And I tell you what, I'll stick another link in the description for my Phrase Like a Pro course, which is the first course that I've seen in this industry. It really brings all these phrasing elements together in a really comprehensive 0 to hero style fashion. I'll put a link for Phrase Like a Pro in the description. But the phrasing and the rhythm is really, 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 really important. You got to play punchy. You got to play funky. You got to play nice and simple with strong groove. Without that, you're done. All right. And the second factor is to try and use motifs. Motifs are just short little musical segments. You can think of it like a little conversation with yourself. You're putting together these little jigsaw pieces, these little musical ideas, and you kind of ask yourself question and answer. That is going to give your solo a real sense of cohesion. You're pivoting around the root. You're playing with great groove and phrasing. You're setting up these little mini phrases which you're going to repeat and work with. So that is going to take your playing to the next level. Using all those techniques might sound something a bit more like this. First, I'll do it in the major key, and then we'll skip forward and do the same thing in the minor key. But of course, it's same notes, different root, different center of gravity each time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, let's skip on to the minor now.
1, 2, 3. Here we go.
So just before I love you and leave you, one final point, and that is this. You can learn academically all this stuff and you can practice it, but the one huge part of this which is missing, which I haven't mentioned so far, is actually learning language related to the genre that you're improvising in. If you're playing in a blues band, you've got to learn those blues licks. You've got to study those blues players. If you're playing in, a reggae band, if you're playing in a funk band, you study those players. You learn the language that they use using pentatonics and blues scales. That will give you the phrasing. That will give you the feel. That will give you the ideas. And you'll be able to speak in the genre of your idiom so much better than just, learning it all academically. So transcription is really key. It's going to really give your playing, just trust me, is going to give your playing that injection that you never thought possible. So there you go. Pentatonics, like you might never have thought of them before. It's super important. And that is just a little teeny bit of what is in Improvisation Mastery. Go and check it out. The link is in the description, along with the link for Phrase Like a Pro. All these ideas are in these courses. They will sort you out, believe me. If you bought me a coffee, thank you so much. You're extremely generous. The link for to buy me a coffee is there. As I mentioned before, the place to get access to me, to ask me anything you want, where I'm always in there interacting, is in my Inner Circle membership. It's an online membership, and it's very, very cheap. a few coffees, like I can't remember what it is, a coffee, 2 coffees a week or something, will pay for your membership and you'll be in the gang. It will be awesome. All right, until next time, make sure that you practice hard. I can't even remember my own slogan. Practice hard, practice smart, and enjoy your music. Take it easy. Oh, great. This sounds a little bit contrived. This. Why do I always bite my tongue?